Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're here today with our Total Wellness Tuesday episode, 1691. What I want to share with you is an often undiagnosed behavioral, learning, cognitive, and mood issue affecting more than 10% of the population and more than 1/3 of those people with diagnosed psychological disorders. So what I'm sharing here today is it is absolutely mainstream, but more than likely your doctor does not know about it and is certainly not testing for it. It has to do with specific nutritional deficiencies caused by a normal production of something called pyrols in the body. The name of this dis-ease of the body is called pyrole disorder, often called Pyroluria disorder as well. It goes by Pyroluria, and the reason is that it's these pyrols that actually show up in the urine. That's how the test is actually done. Mauve factor due to sometimes that purple tint under a microscope when looked at, and the urine under a microscope as well. What we'll typically be calling it today, which is pyrole disorder or pyroluria. Pyroluria meaning pyrols found in the urine under testing. So this was figured out in the 1950s or so. So again, in terms of medical science, not that long ago, but isn't necessarily moving mainstream because if you look at conventional medicine, or you even look at, I would say, psychiatry, not necessarily psychology, that there isn't necessarily that medication they use to fix this. What they do is then add a whole lot of Band-Aids in terms of what it causes issues with behavioral issues in children, temper tantrums or rage in adults, temper in adults. I'm going to go through the symptoms in just a moment, so I don't want to get too deep into this right now, but no one is looking at how it actually affects people and the nutrients that are essentially causing this damage as well in the body, or these symptoms. So I want to take this from the top. This is so important that we go over, and I just want to make sure that if you know anyone suffering with these particular symptoms, that you share with them there might be an easier fix than they would care to believe. You know, oftentimes we want to look for these really complicated, difficult things. So this is speaking from someone with experience, for sure. I think it runs in my family genetically, and that is that if you have one parent that has this specific disorder, the likelihood is about 50% that it will be passed on. If you have two parents with this specific disorder, the likelihood it's passed on to a child is about 75%. So we know that this is passed down through an epigenetic or genetic-based standpoint. Well, we know that the actual issue is that people with this condition produce too much of what's called cryptopyroles as a byproduct of what's called hemoglobin production, so basically with the red blood cells. And the real issue is that when these pyroles are actually created, they have to be removed from the body. They need to be removed from the body, from the blood to the urine to the kidneys out of the body. So what it does, though, is that these pyroles have what's called an affinity for aldehydes in the body, and the main one, the biggest one, being B6. It also attaches itself to zinc as well. And I'll be talking about a lot of nutritional deficiencies that can come from this or cause this later in the show. So I will definitely give you kind of a whole protocol for this. Again, not diagnosing any disease here, not giving treatment protocols for disease or cures, but what we're doing is we're helping the body to rebalance at a homeostatic level, a level of equilibrium where your nutritional deficiencies have been replaced and your toxicities removed. But I want to take a little step back because we thought that there was no way to be able to control the amount of pyrols created in the body, that it was simply all genetic and that's the way that it was. But The truth is that stress and oxidative stress on the body in all forms can actually increase this production of pyrols. So it's going to be part of the plan that we give people, part of the protocol that I gave myself back in the day, and that I would love to be able to share with you. Before we do that, though, what I'd like to do is actually go through the symptoms of people that may be suffering from pyroluria and either get tested or simply go right through the protocols. We used to do testing in my practice from about 2012 till about 2016, maybe 2017. I stopped testing at that point because if someone was exhibiting the symptoms, we simply went straight to what the nutritional deficiencies might be, and I ended up getting very good results with that. Again, not providing any medical treatment protocols here, and simply seek out your medical doctor with specific medical-based questions. So what I'd like to do is, again, just share with you all of the different people that could be affected with this. But really, it's cognitive, it's neurobehavioral, it's affective-based disorders. There's even digestive disorders tied with this because of the oxidative stress. And again, many children that I've seen on the autism spectrum disorder or ADD, ADHD. But overall, it affects overall mood. So that's really what I want to start with this, is that how do I see it the most? I see it with a big temper, with sometimes uncontrollable mood changes, with rage, irritability, certainly anxiety, depression. Again, we're not going through specific diseases, but certainly there. OCD, ASD-based disorders, Tourette's, schizophrenia, bipolar. I know that I mentioned that, but there's different names for how people look at this specifically. Higher levels in sometimes epilepsy. One of the issues, again, I've talked about before, I had obsessive compulsive based disorders and certainly a lot of stress related to that as well. Because it's kind of like, well, that is there's some foundations in stress, and that it causes more stress in your life too. I named schizophrenia, which is a big part of it. But there's also issues with dream recall. There's issues with bloating in the stomach, especially nausea upon waking sometimes for a lot of people. I see this in children quite a bit. I would say memory recall in many people, sometimes sensitivity to light or noises. Delayed onset of puberty can be a big one. White spots on the nails. Again, I'm going to tie some of these also to lack of zinc. A lot of people with leaky gut, intestinal permeability, a lot of people with allergies and asthma, white spots on the nails, poor hair growth, again, delayed puberty, oftentimes have lowered levels of zinc. So it's absolutely something to keep in mind and to look at specifically if you have any of these symptoms. Diarrhea, constipation could go specifically both ways. And then I'd just like to name a couple other issues that can go along with pyrrole disorder, pyroluria, as well as, again, lower levels of zinc, lower levels of B6. And that's the mood swings, that's the anxiety that I mentioned before, poor growth of, I would say, poor rejuvenation of, again, the hair, skin, nails, and as well as the sensitivities to overall life, I'd call it, right? So it's like environmental sensitivities, chemicals, smells, all of these different things sometimes are a bigger issue. And those people that oftentimes can act a little bit more dramatic without even knowing why they're acting that way. So again, we see this in children all the time in my practice. And of course, we see this in adults as well, which are big kids. So how do we go through this? You can absolutely take a cryptopyrrole or cryptopyrrole test. It's a simple urine-based test. Again, we used to run it for about, I'd say, 4 to 5 years. We decided not to after a while. It was a couple $100, and we could simply begin a protocol where people may begin to see results in as little as 3 weeks. So again, we're not providing a treatment protocol for anything. What we're looking at is really nutritional deficiencies, and that's how we're able to help people. If you were to run the test, though, the cryptopyrrole test on your own, I just want you to know what to look for. Anything over 20 milligrams per deciliter shows mild to moderate pyrrole production. And because everybody produces them, it's just the higher amount that we don't want. And then as the levels go higher, well, the symptoms get sometimes more dramatic for people. So what do we do about it? That's the big thing. Is that the first thing I want to talk about is, regardless of nutritional deficiencies, we need to look at where oxidative stress would come from. It can come from pesticides in the environment, environmental chemicals you're associated with or exposed to. It can come from the heavy metals I talked about, but it can come from contaminated water. Anything in the environment, of course, it can contaminate that. What would I like to share with you besides that? Well, the other thing that I've seen is just making sure that you don't have a copper toxicity. I did a podcast on this, and I would love my team to be able to link that up here today, is the one on hidden copper toxicities. So we'll link that up for you today at stephencabral.com/1691. And of course, any other relevant podcasts we'll link up here today. And I'll link up research on pyroli disorder as well, or pyrrole disorder, pyroluria. Goes by many different names, but it's all one and the same. So we need to look at oxidative stress. We absolutely need to detox. There's no doubt about that. Open up those liver detox pathways. But we also want to then get into exploring what levels of stress might we have. We've also seen people with some type of traumatic event in their lives can sometimes begin to produce more of these pyroles, especially if they're genetically predisposed to it. So we do want to work on the stress management part of life, making sure that we're getting enough sleep, that we're managing stress. All of those things are vitally important. There's no doubt about that. And then we get into the nutritional component. And this is, again, where I really think that orthomolecular integrative health, this is where this shines. Because all of a sudden, like right away, we know just from medical science, well, those aldehydes become a big problem because we need to get these pyroles out of the body. And we need to do that by binding to something. And they bind to vitamin B6. And we know zinc for sure. So those are two nutritional deficiencies right away that we see. I mean, I have a hypothesis, not proven factually, that those people with lower levels of B vitamins, namely B6, and I would say B3 as a backup for that, are more prone to pyroluria. Like that's the thing, is I think they're more prone to it. Lower levels of zinc, lower levels of B6. Well, people with digestive issues may absorb less B vitamins. They may manufacture less B vitamins in the gut. They may have lower levels of zinc. So that's really important to look at. I think people with lower levels of stomach acid may be able to absorb less zinc as well. People with high levels of heavy metal, higher levels of copper, higher levels of yeast can all begin to deplete their levels of zinc. Same with allergies. Anything immune-based, you deplete your levels of zinc. That's why I can't recommend enough running what's called the starter kit. The starter kit enables you to look at all your vitamin levels that matter and all your mineral levels as well as your heavy metals. So again, that lab test you can always find at equilibriumnutrition.com. That is called the starter kit, but I always say you're welcome to also run that with your qualified integrative health practitioner or a local naturopathic doctor or functional medicine doctor that specializes in this. You just want to make sure that they specialize in this as well. So, all right, if there's only three things that I could use, of course, you need to work on digestive system, improving your gut. There's no doubt about it. You need to work on your detox capacity. You need to work on the stress in your life. But if I could only give you, it's like, well, what three supplements could I use to help with this? B6, but I would go with an overall activated B complex. I really would. I don't think that you need to just use B6 by itself. I believe that B vitamins work in a synergy. They help each other out, and we know that for sure. So in my practice, what do? I go with an activated B complex for sure. You're welcome to add an extra 25, 50 milligrams a day if you'd like of B6. The activated form of that is called P5P, pyridoxine or pyridoxal 5-phosphate. So I recommend that form of it. Again, that's a functional medicine form, orthomolecular medicine form of it. I recommend magnesium. I like the full spectrum magnesium for sure. I like being able to just incorporate the malate, the lysate, and the glycinate versions of that, chelated forms essentially. And if I could do one more, it's the zinc. And I think zinc picolinate or any well-absorbed form of zinc is a good one here. Somewhere between 25, 50 milligrams a day. You can go more as needed under a qualified practitioner. Again, this is not medical advice. Please do seek out your qualified functional medicine. Well, your qualified, I should say, primary care physician, which is where we have to go, with this as well. Okay, so those are the big three for sure. Just to recap, B6, zinc, and magnesium. If I'm only able to use three, which of course I'm not, so I want to share the rest with you right now, those would be the three. Those are absolutely the most studied. And if you want even just to narrow it down to two, it would be B6 and zinc. And again, tremendous results with that. You can speak with patients and wellness clients and doctors all around the world that have been using that too. So if nothing else, it's helping to better remove them from the body. And that's absolutely what we need to do, is better remove those pyroles from the body. Now, if we go on though, there's still additional research that shows other nutrients are very helpful and synergistic in this way. Magnesium, of course, would be one of those. That's why I use it with it. Magnesium helps with over 300 enzymatic processes in the body, and one of those being to help calm the nervous system. So let's look at others. Ones that you may or may not have heard about before would be EPA as part of omega-3. And those are all needed for healthy, good mood, for natural inflammatory balancing properties. And so EPA and DHA are absolute all-stars when it comes to balancing overall inflammation and certainly helping with mood, EPA being one of those is one as well. So definitely recommend that. Vitamin C for its natural detox properties and as an antioxidant for oxidative stress. So it's almost like, well, what isn't vitamin C good for? And it's a good question, right? Because vitamin C is quite a potent antioxidant in and of itself. Other ones that I would mention that are probably more rare that you may not have heard about as much in terms of overall mood is biotin, believe it or not. Biotin, a lot of people think about, well, it's good for your hair, skin, and nails. And that's true. That is true. Biotin, though, is also used for healthy blood sugar regulation and overall improvement with using your B vitamins and energy. So mitochondria, etc. So big fan of that. But the unsung hero in much of this is manganese. So manganese is used by the body in many different regards. It's absolutely used. I hope that you tuned into my previous podcast on glutamate. So a lot of people dealing with glutamate issues don't have enough manganese at a functional level to actually take glutamate and actually turn it into glutamine, which is a much more usable based amino acid and product. So really important because too much glutamate buildup creates excitivity. It basically depletes the body of more GABA, helps to not be able to calm the body, leads to more anxiety, and certainly behavioral based issues. So again, a big fan of manganese as well in terms of this particular condition and most behavioral-based conditions as well. And I would say the last one that I look at, although it's already included in an activated B complex, is a form of niacin or B3. And that's helping, again, with mitochondrial health. It's also helping with neurological. For sure, it helps if you look at specific studies on depression too. So again, none of this is meant to be a treatment protocol. I do have to recommend that from a medical standpoint. I have to say that. But it is absolutely amazing to me that your typical person, which I was 20 years ago walking into a doctor's office, was never told that many of the conditions we have are very strongly related to nutritional deficiencies at a functional level, not meaning you're not getting scurvy or rickets or any of those things, but at a functional level. Your body does not have enough of what it needs, and it has these toxicities. And nowhere in conventional medicine do they ever share that with you. And if a doctor ever does, there are doctors out there that are medical doctors talking about how all of these nutrients are needed by the body, and their other MD colleagues are calling them quacks. Like, it's unbelievable that these doctors decide to risk their reputation by actually sharing with you real medical science as well from the natural health field, and they're being called quacks. I guess I have the privilege of already everybody thinking that anybody in the natural health field, of course, is automatically a quack, and that's okay. Again, everyone is welcome to live their life and believe that what they want to believe. I am simply here as a reference point from someone that looks unbiasedly at all of the research and says, hey, good, these pharmaceuticals can be life-saving in this condition for short term. And then for everything else, let's actually look at what natural health says. Let's look at what stood the test of time for 5,000-6,000 years. And actually, let's look at what nutritional deficiencies may lead to dis-ease in the body and see if we can help people with that. Really, that's what it's all about. So I simply I don't care about what the medical establishment says about the natural health field and all of these things. What I do care about is helping people. That's the biggest thing. And that I was able to help myself and certainly many. We work with over 250,000 people. I know that what we're doing is working. So what I want to do is just share some of that with you. I want you to understand that there is always an answer. We don't always know the answer, and sometimes our practitioner doesn't always know the answer because it's impossible for one person to have all of the answers. But what we can begin to do is we can simply look at it like this. If we have an imbalance in the body that's showing up as a neurological issue, a brain-based issue, a behavioral issue, a health issue, a strength issue, endurance issue, a weight issue, that there's an underlying root cause for it, right? There really is. And so we can begin to lab test what it might be, and no, your medical doctor does not have, they have access to these labs, but no, they do not run them. They're not covered by health insurance, and they didn't go to school for it. That's the thing. But when I went to Institute for Functional Medicine, 90% of the people there were actually medical doctors. It wasn't 90%, but it was very high. It was people in the medical field. And so there are medical doctors wanting to learn this material, and I think that that's great. But the system is not set up for that. So usually it's a concierge medical doctor, or it's someone that has a different practice because health insurance is not paying for true health. They're paying for sick care management, right? So what we need to do is look outside of the sick care program that we've all been initiated into and really look at true health. We can begin to look at what are our vitamin deficiencies, what are our mineral deficiencies, what are our heavy metals, what are our toxicities. Let's remove those toxicities. Let's begin to rebuild the body by replacing those nutritional deficiencies and at the same time looking at the de-stress protocol that I wrote about in the rain barrel effect. It is the answer. It really is. And it's not mine, right? It's diet, it's exercise, it's stress reduction, it is toxin removal, it's rest, it's emotional balance, it's science-based supplement protocols, and it's success mindset. And that's why it's never any one thing. You don't get better by doing one thing, right? And if you take a pharmaceutical drug and all of a sudden you have lower cholesterol, lower blood pressure, this, that, or the other thing, you didn't actually fix it. You just mask the symptoms and it's going to express itself in a different way. It always does. That's how it works. So we might as well work with the symptoms, figure out what our body needs, and to begin to heal. And you can do that through the de-stress protocol. I know that you can. So hopefully this was helpful. I really want to show you that these things are real. Like when you're experiencing mood-based disorders and you don't know why you have this kind of uncontrollable rage and anger and all those things, like there's a reason for it. And if your kids are exhibiting that too, there's a reason for it. Look at the gut, look at nutritional deficiencies, look at oxidative stress, look at toxicity. And when you do that, you can actually begin to say, okay, yeah, I mean, it's my body and I am acting like that, but there's reasons why. And then we can begin to go about rebalancing the body and we can begin to allow the body to heal. So that's really what it's all about. I appreciate you tuning in. And of course, as always, if this information was helpful, it's meant to share. Please do pass along to anyone else you believe it could serve. And today, if you want to check out the previous podcasts, we'll link them up on copper toxicity. We'll link it up on glutamate. We'll link up research. You can just head on over to stephencabral.com/1691. Take care, everyone. Have an amazing day. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.